Start. So, hello guys. Good night, I could say, or good afternoon, I could say. Because for me, it's 10 p.m. Oh, it's 10 p.m. So, today I'm going to teach about the very basics of Blender, as you would have wanted to learn, of course, once in your life. Like game development, it's a blown fury. So, there you just need to check for one thing that you are using the 0.30. There's no alpha written on it. Yeah, I mean, you would also know about by looking at the splash screen. When I say basics of Blender, I mean like we've just downloaded Upbge and want to know how to make a game and animations. I'm there for you. So let's just dive into it right now. I'll just gently skim over it with such speed where you could understand what I mean. So here, let's start it. This is that was the splash screen, and let's just say you get a bit wiggly and close it. Never mind, go to this icon and click splash screen. You'll get it. Yeah. Let's say you're lost, you can't find it. If you press F3, you would get the search menu. For me, never mind. Some error was occurring, that's why. Yeah. If I press F3 now, as you could see, this, it's working now. It's working. So that I could just simply splash screen, and here you have it. You see, it's simple. It's very much simple, nothing much. And then now on the splash screen, there's file types you could make, like general 3D animation, 2D animation, sculpting if you want to make your own character, VFX if you want to make your own movie, and video editing for the same purpose. You could open another .blend file, and let's say you tried to do something and you thought it was cool and simply closed it without saving. You can press recover last session. Then there are some recent files that you have seen, and then the release notes and development fund, which you should totally donate to, because you see it's getting better and better every day. So look at this. Every normal is shining. You'll get this like a sentence, every normal is shining, by the time we are done with this video. Mhm. So I'll go from this corner to this corner. So let's get started by this now. Splash screen we already saw. About UPBG, will just tell you most of the things that this version of UPBG has. Then you could install an application template, like some other applications template, you know. And then you could also like system for these. I don't really know what these are. Then there's this file. File till here recover. It's just the same thing that you had, except same thing in the splash screen, I mean, except autosave. Autosave is technically like let's say last session for a file does not work, you autosave. When you click autosave, you'll get into like a file explorer of a Blender version of file explorer. Then you'll get many files. Well, technically, this like autosave, what it does is every 2 minutes it saves a blend file and to your personal disk space. So let's say you lose the file. So okay, you have auto save. If you save it, you could save it as a .blend file. You could save it as something else. You could save a copy of this exact file, which is sometimes useful. For link, you could link to objects through like two .blend files. For append, you could just take that object from that file. For data previews, I don't use it, so I don't know much, and I don't think you'd need to use it. Then import. Whenever you would like to import or like just bring some 3D models, they would not be in a .blend file. They would be in other like 3D object files like Obj or FBX. There are many of them. You could import them. Then export, you'd have also these many. For external data, I don't use it. Cleanup, I don't use it. Defaults, let me just explain. So for the save file setup, save setup file, the thing is like let's say I want to change this as something else. Like when I start Blender, a whole new file, I want this to be shown. You could save this. But let's say you screwed it up and you think it's bad, then you could press load factory settings, and it'll fix all the settings that you had. Quit is something you should press before you save a file. No, I'm kidding. That was just close Blender. Edit. Yeah, you could edit some steps like undo. And as you can see on the side, they are written some shortcuts like Control Z. Those are just the shortcuts of this, like Control Z to undo, Shift Control Z to redo, undo the whole history. You'll be like, wait, what? Which history? Chrome history? No, no need to worry. That is safe and sound, except if your mother checks it. This is the history. But let's say if I do something, then the whole thing will be written down in code. So that whole history, let's say I just undo the whole of history. Boom. So I did not have much in my history, so that was no problem. Then you could menu search as I told you if you press F3. I don't mean those F3, but there's a top, like on top you have the buttons F3, you could press those. Then you can rename an active item by pressing F2. You can batch rename the just many sheets all together by pressing Ctrl F2. Then you can lock object modes. Object modes I will explain later on. Preferences, that's a whole nice thing. But I don't think I should make a tutorial. I mean, I should explain that much because that will just take as much time as it would take for me to explain just this. Yeah, render. Now you would be like, what's a render? Why, Nani? So render. When you would have started, you would have just simply explored, and you would see that there's this weird thingy here. That is the camera. As you can see, as much part as like this camera has, opened, as much part as this camera has opened, like you would see that there are borders here. There are borders over here. So this as much as the camera is seeing, it will be made into an image or video format. Nothing more, nothing less. So you could see. Because sometimes there are scenes where you would think like, oh, how did they do only this much? This is the science. So now if I were to click render image, then I could render this whole image. But of course, if you want to tweak settings, you could go over here to the output properties where you could just tweak some settings. So now back to render, you could render an animation, you could render simply images, you could render a whole audio, you could view your render and view your animation, and you could lock the interface. Nah, not much help. Then window. So you could make a new window, you could make a new main window, you could toggle window full screen, meaning you could just like make this whole thing full screen. You could shift through workspaces. You'd be like, what's workspace? These are workspaces as you can see. Like I'm in layout, I'm in modeling, I'm in sculpting. These are all, workspace. Like over here, you could simply do the layout. Over here, I could do some modeling for the cube. Over here, I could sculpt the cube. All those, yeah, it's it's not much right now. I just simply use layout. Now do all the things there, simply there. Then you could show the status bar. Oh, yeah, it's really late at night, and I am a bit sleepy, so I would yawn. Don't mind. You could save a screenshot. You could save a screenshot with the whole like editor. You could toggle a system console. A system console is it will just tell you some things that you have done in code, and yeah, it's not much. Only if you're like totally into game dev. Then if you need help like me, you could open the manual, the tutorials. You could get support. You could uh, you could see user communities, developer communities, Python API. There are many things. You could save your system info. Yeah, that's nice. Now after we are done with this and this, we'll go to this scene. You'll be like, what's a scene? So if you would see in movies, there are certain scenes around where at first there will be a scene where the stickman jumps, then there will be a scene where like they'll show the point of view of the stickman as he's falling down. Then there would be a third scene where the stickman would just have died. So so all those are different scenes, and they are just made. Like let's say here it's a whole new scene. I'll just make a new scene. Boom. And I could shift through those scenes. Nice. Then there's the view layer, but it's kind of like scenes except, yeah, I don't even know what the heck, how to use it. So now after we're done with this row, we'll start with this. You'd be like, all these, they have their own things, so why can't I have mine? Of course, you could change it. Like, simply you could do the magic where you could go to the corner. And the corner, if you simply click and you drag, you could open like many tabs, unlimited tabs until your space runs out. So there I could change to many things. Like I could go, there are many things you still have left to learn, sadly. But mostly if you want to learn game dev, you could go to Logic Bricks editor. Then if you want to learn animation, you could just change this bottom one. Yeah, bottom one is better for animation as like spread out. And the top one is better for the game development as you could use animation and game dev like things both together. Like I normally do it like this. So over there are many things. Like let's say if you want to add color, you could go to the shade editor. If you want to add logic or like code, then you could go to the logic bricks. There's many things. But normally the main thing is the 3D viewport. Let's say you want to close it, you can just right click and join areas and boom. Yeah, it's very, very awesome if you guys. Now we'll go to modes. You would have seen an edit lock object modes. So let me just say there are modes. You'd be like, I want to make this square have one deformed look. Over here you could only scale it, rotate it, and move it. So let me just teach you the shortcuts. R means to rotate, S means to scale, dang thick boy, and G means to move. If you press alternate R, that means you'll make the rotation as was when it was normal. Alternate S to like undo the scale, and alternate G to undo the movement. Nice. So when you do that, you get with this. But if there are other modes, you could go to edit mode and now you'd get to choose certain vertices or maybe an edge, maybe some faces. Like let's just say I chose this vertex and I just made him go out. Look at that, it looks deformed. You could like you could change its shape. Now let me just click all and subdivide it. There's many things, but I'm not going to teach so much about this mode. Let me just subdivide it so I can also teach you about the sculpt mode. When I subdivide it, there are more vertices, meaning that it will get a bit smoother compared to another cube. Let me just add another cube. Oh no. And let me just move it on the x-axis. So yeah, you might be like, why are these axes glowing up? Yeah, let me explain that. So you see these, yeah, these over here at the side, these are the axes they're just showing. So here up it means Z, there's X and the Y, which are just horizontal axes. So when you press G, you can you can move it, and if you press Y, you can move it on the Y axis. You press X, you can move it on the X axis. Press Z, and you can move it on Z axis. Just simply press nothing, and it will like I'll just Control Z to go back. So let's just go. You see that one cube is subdivided, one is not. Let me just, yeah. Now you'll see the thing. You'd be thinking, how could I select? Oh wait, let me teach you the like how I could see and all those basic first. So see, for me, for looking, if I press Shift and then the middle mouse button, I can move around. If I simply press the middle mouse button, you could go like this. If you just simply if you press control and move the middle mouse button, you can zoom in. That's like very smooth. But if you simply want to just rough zoom in, you can move the middle mouse buttons. Now let me go to the sculpt mode quick. So as you can see, this guy, he's subdivided. So whenever I alter his like shape, you could see all those vertices highlighted. But now let me just go to object mode, select this guy. If I'll sculpt him, it will not look so much good. See the signs? Yeah, that's the thing. So let me just go back to object mode. Let me just delete this guy. Delete is just to delete this guy. What did I just blabber? Then of course there's the other vertex paint where you can paint every vertex. Weight paint, that's not really useful right now. And texture paint where you could just paint the texture that this thing has. View. Now over here, this is called the toolbar, which if I press T, it goes. And here it's the sidebar, which if I press N, then it will show like this. Wow, pretty cool. And then you could adjust some last operation, or you could see the tool settings and all. Then if you press a number pad, simply number pad. Wait, what? Now this does not make sense. All these frames. Perspective on orthographic. So let's say this view is the perspective, I think. This is the orthographic view. Because over here it makes any shape look 2D, like you could feel it 2D. This was the old versions of the game engine. Now it's got a bit more better view. First it looked like this, like weird thing. Some weird thing it is, you know. Like how could you get used to such a view? I feel like I'm a sniper. Now then let's just come back to this view. And then for the view again there's another one, camera. Now you could have many cameras and you could make a certain camera active by pressing number pad, like control number pad 0. Then the viewport you could look at from the bottom. You could use the number pad where if you press 8 you can look from here like this. You could just simply change the view. But if you press 7 you go up, 9 you go down, 1 you look at from the negative y-axis, and 3 you look from the negative x-axis. Like I use this whenever I model some character, which I sadly don't. Okay, so let's go back to view. Now for the navigation you could orbit left. You should, for view and all these, you should just like go around, play with it for some time. When you want to play that animation that I will teach later how to make, you could press space bar. Then viewport, you could render an image while like from the viewport that you're looking at, or you could just like render a whole animation or simple keyframe like there. Then let's go to select. Select also, it's just like you could play with all, like you could select all, you can select nothing, you can invert your selection, you can box, lasso, and circle select. You can do many things. Then add. So you could shift A is the shortcut for it. So you could add plane. You could add a plane, you could add a cube, you could add a circle. So this circle is not like how you think it is. Because this circle is just simply weird. Like it's a circle, and normally when you talk about circles in 3D, it's a sphere that you are talking about. So here's the sphere, where of course you could do anything. Shift A. So in the mesh, you would normally have these things to add, and a monkey, sassy monkey. Lol, nothing else. And then curves. Curves are just things that will not get rendered if you do that. You need to do some magic and it will turn to trees or anything you want, literally. Then surface, but I don't use surface metaball and all. I just simply use um the most I've gone into this is I use meshes, I use armature, I use this image reference, I use the light, and I use the camera. That's all the other things are just useless for me. Then the object. When I came first, I thought that maybe to add some shapes, I would need to go to object, where there would be like an option, object add this, object add that. No, no, it wasn't. So let's just go. Object transform. So you can move this like here. See, you can move G, rotate R, scale S. You can change this to a sphere, which I don't know. It does not even work. And then you could set origin. So what's an origin, you would be asking? When you would start it, just look closely at this. You would see a red cross. Well, this cross is the cursor. The cursor is like whenever you add an object, the cursor will be the main point to add, like will be the main place to add that object. Then here, when you start, you can look at this dot here. Yeah, that's the origin. If you go in edit mode and you if you move these, then the origin will not move. So let's say the origin is here. Now if I rotate it, the rotation point is on the origin, same with the scale and movement. All of them, like they are affected greatly by the origin. Greatly. Let me just control Z back to normal. Yeah, and normal. So later on, after we are done with set origin, you could set the origin to many ways. Then we could mirror. You already thought you the axes, but you'd be like, why is that global and local? So see, you see this guy here. Let me just enable move to see his axes. So over here in global, the thing is, the axes are from like those view. Like let's say I move him here, or even if I rotate him on the z axis, the axes will stay the same. Of course, that's not if you go to local. That means for this guy himself. Now, if I were to rotate him, his axes would change. I just alternate R and alternate G this guy. So here you could see his local axes now, and mirror would just do like it would just mirror on that. Oh, sorry for that sneeze. Then I already taught you guys about the alternate G, alternate R, alternate S. You could also clear the origin, like make it come back to normal, which is cool. Then you can apply. Let's say I want this rotation. Wait, let me just this rotation to be the original rotation. So if I press Ctrl A, I would be to apply the rotation. Now, if I would rotate him anyway, and if I press alternate R to clear the rotation, this will be his new rotation. Then we will just skip snap because it's useless. Then we'll go to duplicate where you could duplicate link where if I change the geometry in edit mode, then the duplicate would also have that. Then I could join two geometries together into a shape. I could copy and paste it. I could mark it as an asset. So what's an asset? There's this whole tab called the asset browser where I could just simply mark it as an object, then asset. I could mark it as an asset. Now whenever I want, I could simply just drag and drop this guy here. See that? Just simply dragged and dropped this guy. Of course, I could clear the asset and all, asset browsers. Now let me go to next part, which is parent. So let's say I wanted this guy. I did not want to join the geometry, but I want to make this guy follow this guy. So what I would do, then press shift. I'll select this, meaning that he will be active. The one that glows yellow is the active object. So now he will glow yellow. If I press Control P, then I would join, like I would set parent to. And then I would just press object. So meaning now that if he moves, he moves. As you can see, there's a little relation line that's also formed. Cool, right? Now let's go to collection. If you want to organize this, then you over here in this area, the outliner, then you could organize him by putting in many collections, which I did in my game. Let me just show you my game. Floating death, I call it. Nah, I don't save this. Here you could see that I made many collections and made many collections and I settled them like this. Let me just go back to a new general file. Yes, in object we were at relations. No. Let's go to constraints, but we don't need the constraints because that's a thing that only even I don't use. It's useless. Then we could track, we could link, or like have a data transfer. Could shade it smooth. If I shade a normal, oh god, if I shade a normal object like a one which does not have sharp edges like a UV sphere, right click and shade smooth, you'll still look smooth. But you would say that, oh no, there are those scrappy edges. How do I do it? Well, you just need to subdivide it. Here, what I did, I just added a subdivision surface modifier. What a subdivision surface modifier does it smooths down any like a shape. So if I do it now, just let me just show you, like if I disable it, if I make it 0 and 1, you could see the change literally happening. If I shade it smooth now, it will look like a clear ball, son of a gooey damn. Then, oh, it's 10:33 already. Then now we'll go shade flat, where we'll just shade it flat again. Then object animations. You could insert a keyframe. Now what's a keyframe, or maybe just frame? Those are like the, because what's an animation? Is this a basically a flip book, if you know, where you like draw each like each page, but this time you don't draw it. It's all just pre-made done. Like you have to pre-made do it yourself. You don't need to draw it. You always have a base mesh to start with. It's better than animation. You could like just change those all those things. Then rigid body. Rigid body is just a physics type where it makes it into like a rock. You could add some quick effects, like you could make it quick liquid and all those, but you know. Then we'll skip game because I will do it when I come to the game dev part, which I think I'll just make animation and game dev into another like video, I think, because it's, or else I'm going to be effed up. Now we could convert this thing into a grease pencil. We could convert it a curve or anything that we want, like grease pencil. I just like grease pencil one way because you see it like turns it into one smooth ball of like drawing. It turns into a smooth ball of drawing, which is cool. But let me just delete this cube now because it looks all, I mean, UV sphere now because it just turned all mushy. Then then we could show and hide this object. We could clean up something. I don't even know. Then we could delete this object. We could delete like all the selected objects, and we could scatter the objects if we want, like to but scattering, I don't think you guys have it because I enabled an add-on to have that. Yeah, no need, no need. Then now if we go to the side, we come to this global. As I already told you, those are the orientations. Then we come and transform pivot point. We don't need to know. Snap, we don't need to know. But proportional editing, we need to know. So let's say I'm here at the edit mode because that's the best mode. And here, if I want this to go down smoothly, bringing all the others, without proportional editing, I would, no, it will not go. With this enabled, if I make it go up or something, there's a radius, which if I move the mouse up and down, it changes. Yeah, I could make it smooth, but for me, when I make landscapes, I just simply use random. Like just use it one, two times and then I'll just subdivide it to make it smooth again. And there you just have your own landscape. Damn, you just made a nice landscape, bro. Aren't you happy? Okay, so then later on we come to this part. We'll just skip the view object types because that's just like you if you could view the surface and all those things if you want. You could disable it if you want and all those. Yeah. Then viewport gizmos. There are some gizmos like, of course, you see the navigate. Yeah, those axes it shows in an active tools, active object. Yeah, the main part is the viewport overlays. Like there's the flow. If you stop flow, it will like not show you all those measurements that it has. Then it will show you some text info on what you've selected. Statistics show you the vertices and counts. The lesser the vertice count, the more better and smoother like your performance will be because that's just better. Then we'll go to X-ray mode. If we toggle it, let's just say I added a plane, we could look through the sphere and look at the plane. It's cool. Then there are some ways that we could look at it. In wireframe way, we in wireframe of course. Mm, It was yeah, wireframe shading. We could look at only the wireframes of this object. At solid viewport, solid shading, we could just simply, I mean viewport shading. We could look at it in a solid without no materials and shape. If you want to look at the materials and shape, you could go to the material preview mode. If you want to look along with the shadows and all, then you could go to the render preview mode. Let me just go to render preview mode to show you guys one thing. You see, I don't have such a good laptop to to go to the limits of to go. Sorry for the yawn. To go to the limits of like real speed because it's a 5-year old 2 GB RAM laptop. Feel old yet? So oh, okay, here we are. And then over here you could see that it's not much lighting, not much color because we did not give the person any color and all, but you could search some tutorials and you know. If you want to add lights, here's one pro tip from me. You could select this button thingy, this arrow thingy, and you could disable the scene world. See this? This is what I call the goddamn masterpiece. Like it just adds its own awesome lighting part. Like you could see it's smooth and all. Now let's just go back to solid mode and over here options. Options means if let's say I choose the move tool and I select options effect on the origin. This time if I'll move the object, only the origin will be affected, nothing else. Choose locations, then the location of this object will be affected. Choose parents and even the parents of this object would be affected. I mean guys, you could control your parents with this. What more do you need? Okay. So then we come to the outliner part. Here just like shows all the objects that you have. Then we come to the properties part. And let me just explain all these for you. The first one is the tool property. Like right now, since I selected move, that's my active object, and it just shows all the things that you could change about it. Then we come to the render properties. There are two render engines I'm talking about for animation here, because for game development, you see, for game development, there's only one render engine that's working. Sadly, it's the Eevee. At least it's not Cycles, because Cycles, I don't know how it would look. It would look weird, 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 weird. For game dev, I will correctly explain to you the render, and I'll explain to you the render and the thing below it. I just forgot the name. I'll explain to you in depth about what I'm talking about here. But over here, if you simply go, you could see some settings like you could start your game. That's for Eevee and all. So for one, the Eevee cycle like render engine, it gives just a bit like unrealistic but nice looking renders for real quick speed. While cycles, if I change it, wait a second. If I change it, it gives really awesome renders. Of course, in the lot of your time, it will take a long time. Then workbench is like it would simply just render your whole thing like how it looks in solid view. So it's like kind of useless, very useless, of course. So I'll not explain that render and output properties much, because those are for animation. Then let me go to view layer. Then these are also I don't use it. Then the scene properties. Here you could control all these like gravity and all those things. So for game dev, I will explain the of course the physics. Yeah, in the next video about game dev, I'll explain the physics, the animations that you could add in that, like custom animations. You could add the like could add the whole like gravity things, then you could add the logic, many things you could do for game dev. Well, I'm just writing this down so I could remind myself. Lol. Then we go to the world property. Over here it just tell about the world, like how the world color is. Let me just shift the color right now. As you can see, oh, right now it did not change because this is for the, yeah, let me just change for the viewport display as you can see. Hmm, some problems there right now. It's not changing. It's okay. Then the collection. You could control your collection through this, and then the object properties. Object, you could just control some things of the object. This is one cool feature that I like about game dev. That it is called LOD, level of distance, levels of detail, of course. So here, let's say I would click generate. It will generate four like shapes. It gets low poly and low poly here. So, normally in a game, what makes the FPS run the most is it ruin the most is because of this. Like even if you get far, the thing stays like how it is. It stays high poly, and the more polygon counts, that's more crappier the performance. But over here, if you add LOD, if you get further, just notice this island of mine, guys. If I get further, wait, let me just move this cursor away. If I get further, the geometry changes. You see that? It gets low poly and low poly. See that? It gets low poly here. Low poly means it will get a bit low poly count. So that was most of it. Like what I use this thing for. Let me just delete this too now. Then the modifiers. There is a video that explains all the modifiers till now that have happened, and yeah, it's just normal modifiers. Then physics system, I mean particle system. Even particle system, it's a very long topic which I could explain someday lazily. But normally it just adds particles. Meaning, let's say I click, if I play my animation right now, I just added a particle system. Over here will not show these particles when you render it because no, you need to instance it as an object. You need to make the particles as an object to happen. These are just points, square points, you see. So let me go to physics tab. Oh, here in the physics, we could control how this guy is. Like, is he a character or something? When you want to start the game, of course, you could just press P. If you want to leave it, press escape. And could control most of this guys like how he feels and how he moves. Then you could add some constraints to it. Again, I don't know the constraints like what they are. So let's just leave that over there. Then the object data properties. So here you could see some of its data which again it's not really useful till a certain extent. Then it's this game object properties. For this game object, let's say I want to add something for him. Then normally I would use game properties, game components and game object. I don't use it. Game properties, I could add some properties, but there are just a few kinds like Boolean, which is true or false, integer, which is a solid number with no decimal points, float has decimal points, string means a word like a sentence, and timer, which is basically a timer. Oh, so like that's it for this video. I could conclude. So now you guys could finally start seeing some tutorials, and guys could make some, you could navigate freely around this, and you could model, yeah, I mean you could loosely model some things now after seeing this video. In the next video, in the next video I'll teach about game development, and with the game development at the end I will start a bit of animation, and then I'll just go on the leash of it. But for now, please subscribe. I mean, it's really a dream for me. And if you're watching till now, thank you. Thank you a lot. Thank you for watching till here, because most people I think they would just quit between. I mean, you're watching till here. Thank you. Please comment. I want to also interact with you guys. Please subscribe, like my videos, and it's time for me to say bye. Cha cha.